Welcome to the Warp. This week I want to talk about planet aliens. Now these are aliens that make use of the individual planet pieces in the Fantasy Flight Edition. It's quite likely that none of these aliens ever would have been designed if not for this fun innovation to the game, which is why I'm very glad that this avenue to alien design was introduced to Cosmic Encounter. Let's take a look at the aliens we have so far. Architect. This is from Cosmic Eons. And don't be intimidated by the dense text in its description. The alien is not hard to understand. Here's how it works. First, if Architect wins an encounter as a main player, it gets to create a tower in the opposing player's system. This is done by merging two planets together into a stack. Ships from the two planets both end up on the stacked tower. That's the first part of Architect, which can certainly be devastating to players. You know Architect will usually target a planet with someone else's foreign colony and merge it with another of that player's colonies whenever possible. It also means the defensive system has one fewer planets overall. But Architect is not done. In subsequent encounters, Architect can get a huge combat bonus. If opposing a player with a tower of 2 planets or more, Architect doubles its encounter total. But let's say your opponent doesn't have a tower. If there's a tower of 3 or more planets in the system adjacent to your opponent, you still get to double your totals. And if there's a tower of 4 planets or more anywhere in the game, then Architect gets to double encounter totals as a main player all the time. This gives Architect a serious incentive to win as the defense, because then it's much easier to beat that same player when attacking him or her, as well as defending against that player in the future. This is how you get a taller tower in the same system. So the pros. Architect becomes a combat powerhouse, especially the longer the game goes on, and the potential to whittle down other players' colonies. Cons. It can be confusing for players to fully get this on the first read. In action, though, it's pretty easy. Next up is Explorer. This alien comes from Cosmic Dominion and uses 4 planets from a color not controlled by anyone in the game. Whenever Explorer is the offense, it can take one of these extra planets and put it in the defensive system, targeting it. It's now a planet belonging to the defense who must defend it with no ships there. Like Architect, this is only half of the alien's effect. Once these planets start popping up in the game, Explorer can get a combat bonus. Explorer gets to add 1 for each discovered planet it does not have a colony on, 2 for each discovered planet Explorer coexists on, and plus 4 for each discovered planet Explorer occupies alone. Pros. Explorer can start getting a small bonus each time as the offense win or lose. It's easier to win on a planet where the defense has nothing to lose. On one turn, Explorer can often pick up 2 of these planets, and even if you invite offensive allies, you're looking at having a nice little plus 4 on a follow-up turn. And you might risk getting it alone on a second encounter during your first turn. Cons. The combat bonus is pretty small for most of the game. However, once Explorer is ready to go for the 5th colony, you could be looking at a bonus of plus 4 to plus 16, depending on how many of your planets you got out and where you're alone on them. Next is Leviathan. This is from Cosmic Incursion, and is one of the first aliens that really use the planets. As the offense, Leviathan can send one of its planets into the hyperspace gate, so long as no one else has a colony on that planet other than Leviathan. The planet gives Leviathan a plus 20 to encounter totals. That's a pretty hefty bonus. After winning, presumably, the Leviathan drops 1 or more of its ships from that planet onto the targeted planet, and the rest return to Leviathan's system along with the planet itself. Other players should try to get colonies on as many of Leviathan's home planets as possible. The bonus does not apply on defense. If Leviathan has no planets free of other players' ships, it really has no power. Pros. Plus 20. Are you kidding? That's hard to beat most of the time. Cons. Not much if Leviathan can maintain at least 1 planet with just its own ships there. Locust. This is also from Cosmic Incursion. This alien gets to basically eat a planet in another player's system if Locust is the only one with ships there. Now this always sounds pretty impressive when people first read it, but the reality is that Locust is not a very effective alien. And that is because Locust has to essentially attack planets with no allies. And if you have no allies, you usually end up facing those players allied with the defense. That means it's harder than normal to win as the offense, giving Locust fewer chances to use its power. And even if it does use its power, Locust is really only getting a foreign colony that it can't lose. But losing your foreign colony is not a frequent problem in the game. Most players don't want to use up an encounter attacking their own system. not even to get their own power back if they have fewer than 3 home colonies. It's just better to go for the foreign colony and get closer to winning the game. Pros. Sounds scary, and in a game with will, you might be able to keep your score somewhat safer. Cons. Most games you don't have a power. Even with will in the game, any foreign colony you gained as an offensive ally is still at risk of being targeted. Next up is Pygmy. This alien comes from Cosmic Alliance, and like Explorer needs a set of planets not being used by any player. Pygmy has all 10 of its planets in its home system with 2 ships on each. First, anytime a player gets a colony in Pygmy's system, it only counts as half a colony for the score tracker, rounded down. So each player's first foreign colony here means they don't really gain anything. The other thing about Pygmy is that each planet can only hold at most 4 ships. So players attacking with a combined total of over 4 won't get to land all of those ships there. And some allies could potentially be hosed out of landing at all. The offense lands his or her ships first, then allies land clockwise. So if the offense has 4 ships in the gate, you won't get anything by allying with him or her. Pros. I love this alien, and yes, I created it, so I'm biased. But here's why I love it. What a deterrent. No one wants to attack you. It takes 2 attacks to get 1 colony if they win both times. And when you are attacked, it's with a small force, making it easier to defend. You also have only 2 or often 1 ship at risk, so winning on defense isn't even that critical. You can throw an encounter, getting rid of a lousy card, losing little, knowing players aren't gaining much, if anything. You can also leverage a deal situation better, especially if you have a foreign colony you can offer other players a colony on. Cons. Pretty much all of Pygmy's advantages are soft advantages. It doesn't do much to help Pygmy win, other than spreading ship resources out and helping with hand management. Still, I love playing this alien and will pick it over most others. The Claw. This is from Cosmic Conflict. And this alien sounds scary like Locust, and in many ways can be as scary as Locust should have been. At the start of the game, you pick a card from your hand to place face down on your sheet. This is your Claw card. When another player reveals the exact same card, you activate the Claw. When this happens, you will get to steal a planet from that player's system. Ships there go to the warp, and the planet is moved to your system to count as a home planet. But it also counts as a foreign colony, even if everyone else has ships on it but you. Pros. Players familiar with the common cards in the game will be afraid to use them. You gain extra foreign colonies in a very dramatic fashion. Cons. You have to be sure you pick a card that is likely to appear somewhere else. You can't ever use negotiate cards, which are the most common. But there are a lot of attack 8s, and if you have something like a card zap, the other one has a high chance of being played. I have seen a couple of games where the Claw never got to activate, but I've also seen players win the game with it. Finally, we have Voyager. This is from Cosmic Dominion. Voyager can put one of its home planets into the warp. When Voyager has a planet in the warp, it counts as a foreign colony. And Voyager can swap a different home planet into the warp later in the game. That means you're messing with other players' foreign colonies because other players' colonies on your planet in the warp don't count towards the win. Pros. You are essentially playing the game needing 1 fewer foreign colony to win. You also get to potentially slow other players down, forcing them to need 1 more to win. Cons. There aren't many serious downsides to Voyager. You might have a harder time making deals, but not if you, like Pygmy, have a colony in some other player system where you can give another player a colony in a deal. Being able to switch the planet you send to the warp at the start of your turn means you can sometimes really stay in the game. It's simply easier to win as Voyager, and I love this alien too. So that's where we are with aliens that use planets. I almost included Moocher, which has couch tokens that act like planets, but I'll cover that one in a future video. So far there's only 7 aliens that use the planets, and I think there's a lot of potential for more aliens. There are many homebrews that have jumped on this idea of the individual planets, and I encourage you to check some of those out. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.